I started working with Meredith in 1990.
I met her in New York years and years and years ago.
You know, when Beverly Sills got discovered as an opera singer and became world famous, she would laugh and say, "Oh, I've been doing this for 30 years." So this is Meredith's 50th year of performing, and people could not be who they are had they not heard Meredith Monk. You know, not only people like Bjork, who acknowledges that, but classical musicians. Oh, the tongue just comes down a little.
I think what's interesting about this work is when you start learning it, it looks really simple, and the more you get into it, it gets more and more difficult to do because it's so precise. And so I think the dancers discovered that this last weekend at the rehearsal, that they thought it was going pretty well, and then Allison comes in and goes, "No, you actually have to turn your eyes with your hands. You have to have..." So little details start to come in, and they go, "Oh, right."
In the final piece called Panda Chant, where we're going panda, panda, stomping and clapping, and making all those, you know, noises. You have to be doing so many things at once. You have to be, I had to be, you know, keeping track of where the beat was with my feet. Also, you know, steadily moving to the right. Also, clapping every other footstep. Also, keeping track of whether I was going panda, 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 whether I was doing it twice or three times or twice or three times.
In Meredith's case, she has said that she was a really good mover. She had her own particular vocabulary of movement, but that she felt comfortable with. She didn't feel comfortable with being a regular singer. Her mother was a famous radio singer and classically trained. Her grandfather was an opera singer. So she comes from a singing tradition, but she knew her voice was not like her mother's or like these classically trained voices. So she said, I began to sit at the piano and challenge myself to see how I can make my voice move like my body moves. How did you feel about that? Let's stand in the space, okay? Kind of like we were the other day. Make sure that you're near people that you need to hear. Carrie and I, Carrie Ryer Park, who teaches voice here, we're very sympathetic about teaching, because you know there are many different pedagogies about teaching. But we know we're dealing with a community, the Bennington community is not like a conservatory where everyone's going to make these beautiful sounds, because they're not going to be singing classical music acoustically over an orchestra. I think that in teaching this particular piece, I'm really sensitive to that in early instruction, imparting information that they don't know in a way by making them do it, which I think is the old Bennington way. You learn by doing. This is Dewey's philosophy, right? So I just go in and start teaching them. And I teach all of them all the material. So they have an organic sense of the whole piece, not just their little part, which is what happens in most choruses. You know, the altos learn this, the tenors learn this, the soprano. Everybody learns everything.
Would sit sit there and listen and be like, just like get a wave of the music and just like be in awe. And that kind of alternation happened for every piece and every rehearsal, and there were parts where we were just like, oh, we have to do this again. But also the other half of the time it was like, oh my God, like we're a part of this thing that's happening.
They usually leave this class really buzzing. You know, I go home and I have to stay up and watch TV for another hour and a half instead of going to bed at 9:30 like I'm used to, because I'm buzzing too. You know, I go in exhausted, I come out exhilarated. It's like,